Hi, welcome to today's video. This is the fourth episode of our mini-FLIPs series. Today, we'll discuss the theory, where to look for opportunities, what to watch out for, and where to find investors. So get ready, let's get started. I've been following your questions for all three episodes of our mini-series, as well as what you've written to me by email or in the comments. And the main thing you're interested in is where to find opportunities. Where can you find a mini-FLIP? Where can you buy one for just a few thousand or tens of thousands? And how can the whole process be managed? So let's get to it. Try to think as creatively as possible. Mini-FLIPs didn't really exist here before I started flipping. Hardly anyone focused on mini-FLIPs as much as I have. I'd like to tell you one thing. There really are plenty of opportunities to buy something for just a few thousand. The fundamental building block is to buy what nobody wants and try to find someone who does want to buy it. If I set aside the most basic main things, meaning advertising like Bazosh, there are plenty of listings where someone is offering a share of land, a garage, or a small piece of something, a bit of a garden, a cottage, even a cottage on someone else's land. You can find all of this on classified ad sites, on Sreality. On Sreality, if you set a filter for up to 100,000 or 200,000, you'll definitely get dozens or even hundreds of offers. And just like with classic flipping, you can make counter offers, you can check how long the ad has been up, you can try to negotiate the prices down as much as possible. The advantage is that these mini flips are usually not in high demand. Most people buy properties in the range of 1 to 5 million, and that's probably the most common price range for sales on Sreality. You can also try other advertising websites. You can try local bulletin boards in towns, current notice boards where people post ads, or you can try Facebook groups, you can try groups where investors are present and where these kinds of things are offered. Often it's about someone buying a house and also getting some extra things that are useless to them and they want to get rid of them. Or for example, someone inherits a farmhouse or a cottage and along with it inherits some farmland, and again, they don't know what to do with it. So they put it up for sale and there you can spot it and buy it from someone. Another thing that is very important for finding mini flips is letter campaigns. Try picking out properties that are abandoned, or even look up small plots of land or garages in the land registry and try writing letters, handwritten if you like, and send out 10, 100, even 1,000 letters to get people to respond to you. What should the letter look like? Hello, I am a private investor. I am interested in your property, your land, your share in the property, your garage, the property I am interested in. Please contact me at my phone number, or you can even write your price directly. I don't recommend that. Some investors do it right away, writing that they offer you this much for your land or 50,000 for your garage, but I don't recommend it. It's better to listen to the person and hear what their expectations are. That's one of the most important things when it comes to negotiating prices over the phone, because whoever names the price first loses. You know, it can happen that someone calls you in response to your letter and you're willing to offer 100,000, but they might be satisfied with just 50. So if you write in the letter that you're offering him 100,000, he'll say, great, awesome, I'll sell it. I would have been happy with 50. Sometimes the differences are so striking that, for example, the person only wants 10,000, but you offer him 100. That's why whoever names the price first loses. Always let the seller speak first. Another thing you can do, and it's become quite popular lately, is to create what's called a landing page. A landing page means you buy a domain, like I want to buy a share or I want to sell a share. And on that page, you put something like a classified ad. Yeah, I call it a collection channel, meaning you have a website where people can sign up using a form or an email address to show they're interested in selling a share or a property. You create that website and then you advertise it. You advertise it on TikTok or Instagram or on Google, on Seznam. Again, you have to calculate whether it's worth it for you, whether the advertising will pay off, whether you'll get a return on it, whether you'll create the website yourself, or if you'll have a designer or a web developer do it for you. It's quite an interesting thing, because if you do your SEO well, if you set it up properly, your site will show up in search results, and when someone types into Google, I want to sell my share of land or property, you'll appear at the top of the search rankings. They will contact you, and at the same time you can negotiate with them about the price and the sale. So don't underestimate this either. It's interesting. Another way to find opportunities to actually find these mini flips is that you can post ads yourself. You can post an ad yourself on classified websites, on Anons, or even on Sreality, in newspapers, anywhere. You can place an ad like, my name is, I am buying a share in arable land, or I am looking to buy a garden, or an investor buys a garage in this and that location. Yeah, again, I recommend choosing a location as close to your area as possible. You don't have to cover the whole country. At the beginning, do it near where you live because you'll be able to estimate the value better. You'll have a better travel distance and often you'll actually see the property and be able to work with it further, clearing it out or even advertising it, for example. So in the beginning, when you don't have that much capital yet, when you're trying to price things as accurately as possible and sell them well, and you don't have a large portfolio, look for properties in your own area. Yeah, that's an important point. Another way to search for properties, and in my opinion, one of the best ways to find a great opportunity is to go out in person. That means going out into the field. I set aside a free Saturday or Sunday. I get in the car in the morning and head out. I look for abandoned properties, or I simply stop in a village that interests me, or in a town or city, and try to talk to someone there and directly ask the locals. Don't be shy. Municipal offices, grocery stores, local shops, especially in villages. The shop assistants always know the gossip. They know where a property is for sale. They know who has debts, who is facing foreclosure, or where you might have the opportunity to ask around and get some advice. It often happened to me that I simply stopped in a village, saw an abandoned house, and asked a neighbor, and the neighbor told me, no, that house isn't for sale, but I know that over there a garden is for sale. Yeah, so I went, checked the land registry, saw that a garden was for sale there, and I contacted the co-owners. Either directly if they lived nearby, or by letter, or another way, by looking them up on the internet where I found their phone number by name and address. Because you don't always have to just write letters. Sometimes the person who owns the property, you can find them online, maybe on a social network. They might have a Facebook profile, or maybe they run a business like a hair salon, a shop, or an e-shop, and you can easily find them by their name. If you want to find someone on the internet, you might discover that they have a company and you can write to their data mailbox. Do you know that they'll receive it? Do you know that they'll get back to you? Just write, I am a private investor, I am interested in your property. Get in touch with me. And I'll send an email or find a phone number or send it to their data mailbox. There are so many opportunities that absolutely anyone can make a living from this. Then you just choose whether you want to work with a smaller amount of capital or with a larger amount of capital. And how to find investors, you'll find out at the end of this video. So now we've talked about where to find opportunities. An important thing after you find an opportunity and a buyer is drafting the purchase contract. How to acquire ownership, because without acquiring ownership, you basically have nothing. When something is agreed upon, it's important that you sign at least a purchase contract. When you're doing mini flips, when you're buying something for 10, 15,000 or 2,000, it definitely doesn't make sense to go to a lawyer because the lawyer would cost you more than the entire purchase price, especially if it's a small plot of land. The purchase contract is a document that gets filed. It's basically like a birth certificate. The purchase contract is submitted together with the application for registration, which must be signed by at least one of the parties, meaning either the seller or the buyer. The application for registration does not require signatures from both parties, so you can sign it yourself, and you don't have to worry that someone hasn't signed the application and that you can't submit it. But the most important thing is the purchase contract. The purchase contract is the document that will be recorded in the land registry and is essentially the title deed for the property. What should you focus on in the purchase contract? First, it's the identification of the seller and the buyer. You must have the correct personal identification number, correct name, and permanent address. The permanent address must match the permanent address on the identification document you will use to verify your signature. When verifying the signature, it's important that if you are a natural person, your signature should be notarized. The land registry office does not require you to have the signature notarized. The cadastral law states that you must prove that the signature is yours. This means, of course, that the shortcut is to go to a checkpoint or the post office and have it notarized. And then your problems are solved. Or the other option is to go to the land registry office and have it confirmed by a land registry employee. Of course, this is something the land registry offices aren't really prepared for, because usually they get annoyed, it takes longer, and it's a much more drawn out process than if you just have it notarized at a checkpoint in a few minutes, where they do it often and your problems are solved. If you have a flipping LLC, you can avoid this by creating what's called a signature specimen, which means you send your signature specimen to all the land registry offices, and that's the signature you'll use to sign documents. If you have a signature specimen on file at the land registry offices, you don't need to have your signature notarized. It's quite interesting because when you have an LLC and you're buying more properties, you actually have the option to just sign the documents without needing to have your signature notarized. So it's a really good real estate hack, a signature specimen that's registered at every land registry office. Another thing is the subject of the purchase and the identification of the property you are acquiring. Always be very careful there, because sometimes the land, when you're buying a share, is owned by someone other than the owner of the building. In the past, there were cases where when the owner of the property and the land beneath it was the same, the properties were merged. This means that the parts are the building. But sometimes it happened that the properties were not merged, precisely because there was a different owner or co-owner of the land and a different co-owner of the building. It is important to note, and this is a small phrase that the land registry insists on, that it must be written as building on the land. It cannot be stated as part of the land. You must not make a mistake in this, because otherwise the land registry will not register your purchase contract. What happens if the land registry does not register your purchase contract? Usually, you have to withdraw the application and submit a new purchase contract. This whole process can take several months. In the case that you have the purchase contract verified in only one copy, you have to wait until the land registry returns it to you upon request. And then you actually submit the purchase contract again, or possibly correct it, right? So I don't recommend this, because during those several months while you're going through this process, it could happen that the person ends up in execution proceedings, changes their mind, or some other problem arises. So always make sure to read the purchase contract several times. Check if all the information is correct, if the property being purchased is properly defined, if you have the correct title deed, if the cadastral area is accurate, and an important thing is that you must also have the purchase price specified correctly. If you are buying multiple properties, if there are plots of land and buildings involved, then ideally the purchase price should be specified separately for each property. So be very careful about that. The purchase contract is the acquisition document that will be stored at the land registry and will always be available at any time through CUSC via remote access. And if you later decide to sell the property, it will always serve as the acquisition title. The purchase price is an important matter. The purchase price is specified both numerically and in words. If these do not match, for example, if you write 1 million in words but 950,000 in numbers, this can be corrected by what is called a joint declaration, stating that it was an administrative error and that it is simply a correction. The land registry will then record it. But again, the consent of both parties, both the buyer and the seller, is required. An important aspect is how the purchase price was paid. This means that if you want to be absolutely certain and you are paying at the time of signing the purchase contract, it is important to state that the seller confirms with their signature on the purchase contract that the purchase price has been paid in full. This is important because if you don't have the purchase price specified and there is nothing regarding its payment, you should technically have a receipt confirming that they have received the purchase price. It's not enough to just write the purchase price was 1 million crowns, period. If you have this written in the purchase contract, it also serves as confirmation that the purchase price has been paid, so you can be at ease. And at the same time, it can serve as a receipt for you. And the last thing you should always check, and something I personally have had a lot of trouble with, is the verification of the seller's or buyer's signature. It never would have occurred to me that this could be a problem, but it happened to us that, given the volumes we were dealing with when we were buying thousands of properties, the sellers would go to the post office or to a checkpoint, have their signature verified, and in the end, the verification clause was not done correctly. In the rush at the checkpoint or at the post office, it just happened to us that someone would mix up a birth number or someone would get the date of birth wrong. It even happened that they got the name wrong as well. This mainly occurs with those verification clauses that aren't typed on a computer but are filled out by hand. If the birth number date of birth or ID card number on the verification clause doesn't match that of the seller, the land registry will not approve the entry and your purchase contract won't be registered. Always double check that the information matches your details in your ID card and in the purchase contract. Otherwise it won't be registered and you'll have another problem. A withdrawal has to be filed. Be careful about this, because trying to claim back 50 crowns from the Czech Post for signature verification as compensation doesn't really work out and isn't really worth it. The last thing everyone asks about and that interests you is cooperation with investors. I've completed a few initial flips. I believe that investors who have bought my book, taken my course, or who watch my videos really like flipping. Maybe they've already managed their first flips or mini flips, and perhaps they've already bought 2 or 3 properties. They've even made some profit. And now they'd like to take it further and flip more. Set up a flipping LLC, find an investor, and increase your so-called turnover, right? Because you can turn over 100,000 and make some nice money from that. But of course, the bigger the amount of money you move, the bigger your profit at the end of the year. The first thing every investor is always interested in is what's called a track record. What is a track record? A track record is what you have accomplished so far. You know, if you go to an investor and say, I bake 10 bread rolls and I'd like to open a bakery, they'll look at you like you're an idiot because they'll think anyone can bake a few rolls on a baking sheet in the oven. But if you come to them and say, I've done 10 flips, I know the know-how, I know how to do it, I can price things, I can sell, give me some money, we'll split it 50-50 or buy some share, then that's a whole different story. The difference is that you're betting on real estate, on tangible investments. That means with an investor, it should work like this. You say, let's set up an LLC together. I'll take care of everything. I'll find the opportunities, handle the whole process, buy and sell, and we'll split the profit according to some formula. Usually, when one person provides the money and the other provides the know-how, it should be split 50-50. Or at least that's how I do it to keep it fair. When, for example, I do mentoring, I take 10 to 30% plus an annual fee for the mentoring. If you're going to have an investor, the crucial thing is that you really get along with them. There has to be some chemistry. It can't be someone who's going to try to undermine you or rip you off in some way and so on. Always try to say, let's set up an LLC together. You'll provide the money, I'll provide the know-how. Let's do 50-50. I'll be the managing director, you'll have a 50% share, I'll have a 50% share. I don't recommend negotiating interest rates with the investor. Interest in flipping is really just a burden. That means you agree that he'll put, say, 1 million crowns into the LLC. In a year, you make 2 million crowns. You send back the 1 million he invested, and the remaining 1 million after taxes, you split in half and pay yourselves as dividends. That's how it should work. How do you show investors your own track record? With real estate and flipping, there's a very interesting thing, and that's the Kazakh real estate cadastre, where you can officially show every deal you've made, that you've closed it, and that you've paid taxes on it. That means it's undeniable. You can't fake it in any way. So I recommend making so-called reports. It's simple. In Excel or Word, you just add a photo of the property, put in that the purchase was 100,000, the sale was 200,000, and the profit was such and such. How long did the sale take? And directly describe the property with the cadastral area and the ownership deed. This way, you'll have a document like the one I can show you here from one of my companies. Here is a report from one of my companies. Here you can see the evaluation report, you can see how many properties were traded, how much they were bought for, and how much they were sold for over the course of 1 year. When you have this report, you can send it to the investor. You can show them how much you earned, how much margin you had, and how long it took. They have it in black and white, and they can verify the information themselves. And don't forget one thing, you don't have to take the very first investor you meet, you know. You should choose, because it's actually a relationship. It's like a marriage, it's a long-term relationship. You'll be doing business together for several years. You'll be dealing with things together, like whether the property can be sold for more or less, how you'll split the dividend, whether you'll pay out a dividend or reinvest it, and so on. That person should be as close to you as possible. In the first phase, for beginners, I recommend take people from your close circle, parents or distant relatives, an uncle, an aunt, and so on. They will invest in you, they will trust you, and you will do your best not to let them down. In the next phase, more and more investors will start to join in. You can approach them directly, you can approach them at events, at real estate conferences, or even online. It might sound a bit silly, but nowadays with social media, you can just post a story. If you have some reach and you have 100, 200, 500, or even 1,000 or 2,000 followers, you just post a story. I'm looking for investors for flipping, and someone will definitely get in touch with you, right? Don't force it. If you end up with a lot of potential investors, really take your time to choose the one who suits you best and with whom you'll actually enjoy working, because that's the most important thing when it comes to flipping. You have to enjoy making money, so take care. And with that, we're wrapping up our mini flip series. See you next time. Bye.